I don't know what the weather is like in your region of the world, but here in the Northeast, where we are coming from for the Fans First football show, it is frigid, it is snowy, but for some of us, because of the divisional games, the sun is shining and it's 80 degrees in our minds, but I'm not going to say which ones. It was a divisional round of chills, thrills, and major ills. My name is Brian Anthony Davis. This is the Fans First football show. We are live on the Steel Curtain Network. We are live on Mile High Broncos as well. And speaking of Mile High Broncos, Jess Place is here. Jess, what is going on, my friend?
Hello, how's it going?
Very good. Very, very good. As the divisional games are now complete, we waited until they were over, and so many things to report. And a guy who knows a lot about divisional rounds in the past, watching his team just completely dominate over the last 20 some years. They've taken a year or two off, and that's okay, but they'll get back to it. Nick Hogan from Foxborough Frenzy. Nicholas, what is going on?
Not too much. Enjoying some football games and some fun stuff to talk about today.
Oh my gosh, we are going to have a blast here. If you are here, if you are normally here looking for the Q&A, the Q&A is not going to be here this evening. Jeremy Betts is on assignment, but go ahead. If you do get super chats in, I will go ahead and read those as well. But we've got 4 games to talk about here, and they were absolutely, for the most part, fantastic. The worst game of the bunch started out first, and to me, it was a one-sided affair, but we're going to talk about all of them. And the reason it was a one-sided affair, it seemed like red, gold, black and white stripes were all together in this game. If you ask the Houston Texans and the rest of the world, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Houston Texans in this game. Hogan, we'll start off with you.
All right, I will try to be as objective as possible, but I don't know if I can do that with my loathsome hate of the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's get into the stats of what happened in the game. Patrick Mahomes, another very pedestrian game for him this year. It is just a continuing trend for Patrick Mahomes, not looking like himself other than his little dancing around magic that he pulls off getting out of the pocket there. Passing wise, 16 for 25, 177 yards and only 1 touchdown. And a good chunk of those yards went to his favorite guy on that team named Travis Kelce, who had a resurgence. As old as he is still putting up numbers that are just absolutely bonkers in the playoffs. 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. That long one of 49 yards was an absolute beaut that got them into scoring range there. On the ground, Kareem Hunt led the day with 44 yards and a touchdown. On the Houston side of things, C.J. Stroud did what he could to keep his team in the game. 19 for 28, 245 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, no turnovers by Houston, and unfortunately, they were not able to get the job done. Joe Mixon was obviously one of the best additions for this Houston team throughout the entire season. 18 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown, and Nico Collins led the way with 5 catches and 81 yards for Houston. But as you said, Brian, they fall to the Kansas City Chiefs 23-14. A lot of questionable calls in this game, which I'm sure we're going to discuss a whole bunch.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. But before we do that, it is amazing to me what Travis Kelce continues to do when the lights shine brightest. I know he is talking about, he's mentioning retirement, and for a guy like him, he is look what his brother has done, and he has always had more talent and more accolades than his brother ever had, and those guys are set for life with in retirement. I could see Kelce doing the same thing, but as far as that goes, he's going to wait until after the season. He's excited for the next couple of games, and he came up big. Mahomes comes up big in big games, Hogan. I agree with you, but a lot of people were talking about the calls. So I'm going to go to Jess to talk about the calls, but I'm going to come back to you on that as well to hear what you have to say about it. Jess, you have had to deal with phantom calls for years when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and your Denver Broncos. Now, watching it on the grand stage, what could be done about this, or if anything?
It's Frustrating for sure. I mean, when you see the hit that Jared Goff took yesterday, and then the calls that they were giving Mahomes in the game, in that first game, it was not at all fair or equitable, or it was so frustrating, and we've been seeing it all year. And like, I would like to say that it peaked in this game, because there were at least three really awful, like the collision with the two Texans players, and for whatever reason Mahomes ended up below them and barely got touched. He got flagged for that. It's super frustrating as a Broncos fan. Like, you hate to see anybody get favorable calls, but when it's your arch division rival, it really kind of disgusts you.
But now let me ask you to take the D hat off and put the O hat on. Objective is what I'm asking you to do. Mahomes still finds ways to get it done, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he made that pass where he was falling to the turf, and that was pretty awesome and frustrating, because he is that good. I just wish that the officials would take their thumb off of the game. Like, it just call it fair for everybody, league wide.
Now, Hogan, I'm going to go back to you on this one, because this is something that you have seen in your past, watching Brady get calls. Now, Brady was still brilliant though, and so I'm not. They won. They won most of those games very fair and square. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm just saying most of those games fair and square. And but like me is I don't care. We still take them. It's like the ugly girl at the bar at 2 a.m. You're still going home and dancing with her, you know. so you're not going to put it in your Christmas card. You're not going to brag your friends about it, but you're taking it and you're not giving it back. So, but where do you look at this at? Because this is something very intriguing to me. Because if I'm a Chiefs fan, I still feel that they won this game, but felt like they had help. And I'm going to mention one more thing before you go. I am, as you know, I cover the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've been a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers for so many years. I still hear all the time about Super Bowl 40 and how that was taken away from the Seahawks, which I completely disagree. I could bring up some things, but it still hurts to hear. But then you just stop and laugh and say, hey, look behind me, that's a tribute to that winning team. So so let's hear from your perspective, who've seen this, who have benefited from this a little bit in the past.
So arguably this is interesting. Obviously, I know, coming from a Patriots fan, where you're going to have a lot of people that are just going to jump all over me about my perspective on this. However, I view it as the Patriots had the dominant run that they did. Did they benefit from some calls? Absolutely. They also had, terrible calls go against them. They just weren't obviously as bright in the spotlight as, some of the Kansas City ones at this point. And I think the aggravating part that I look at this is the Kansas City Chiefs are good enough that they don't need the calls. That's the thing that aggravates me. And I think that's the thing that you saw with, like, the Patriots and Tom Brady. And the reason why I didn't see it from that perspective as a Patriots fan as much is because Brady doesn't have the athletic ability that Mahomes has with the running and, being protected outside of the pocket, because Brady didn't do that. You saw guys like Gronk and Edelman and all those guys in the Patriots dynasty. They got the crap kicked out of them a lot. Gronk was injured all the time. Fun fact, actually, while you were talking about Travis Kelce's accolades, him and Gronk are the same age, and Gronk has been retired for 4 years because he took a beating in the position that he played with the New England Patriots. Now, again, that being said, Kansas City, it's tough to watch right now, because again, they are so good as a unit, as a football team, and what they're doing is unheralded. I mean, they're essentially repeating what the Patriots did for the last 20 plus years for the Patriots dynasty. The only caveat to it, though, is, as a Pats fan, I looked at it where we had competition that really stepped up the game to another level, where you had the Peyton Mannings, you had the Aaron Rodgers, you had the Drew Brees, you had the talent that I don't think the NFL might have ever seen before with the quarterback play and the other teams that the Patriots had to go up against. Right now, this might be controversy and it might be a hot take by me. I look at Patrick Mahomes as the Michael Jordan of the NFL right now, where Michael Jordan is considered the greatest of all time by some people, right? Who was his biggest rival when he won the 6 championships? There was nobody that really was that guy where you had a Larry Bird versus a Magic Johnson. You had a Peyton Manning versus a Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes is beating up on guys like Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. It's just the list goes on, and nothing against those guys, but they're not at the same caliber of quarterback battles that we've seen. And I think that's why it's tough to sit here sometimes and see the calls that the Chiefs get, where it's like, I'd really love for like Jess said, call it across the board the exact same way and let them beat you on their own terms.
Well, I saw some plays in games today that I felt were very one-sided, but they weren't as egregious as what I saw in that Texans game. But again, the Chiefs, I think that the Chiefs, there's no way they were losing that game as far as that goes. And I understand Houston's position. I get what they need to do right now and what they need to say, but yeah, of course, that's the way it is. But I thought the Chiefs were the favorites for a reason, the number one seed for the reason. We'll see that all come out in the wash next week. It's going to be a lot harder with no matter who was going to play the Chiefs next week. They're both darlings of the NFL because the Ravens get a lot of calls because they're the Ravens, and it seems like the Bills do too. So I'm interested to see that game. But let's go ahead and go to the thriller. Now, it really wasn't a thriller, but it was the most shocking game, and it was thrilling. And for me, I live in Maryland. Two teams in the playoffs, none of my teams are from the state of Maryland because the Washington Commanders play in Maryland. So, with that being said, I was watching the game with a lot of Commanders fans, and I consider ever since I will never root for the Ravens unless I absolutely have to. Like if it's the Ravens versus the Taliban, I guess I have to root for the Ravens. But the Commanders, I had no problem rooting for yesterday, even though I like the Detroit Lions story. But that game, I still can't believe that it happened. And I watched it, and I watched the whole thing, and I'm still pinching myself that upset came through. Hogan, let's start with you.
Right. Well, the big thing that you touched on was that Detroit was the number one seed, and a lot of people had them on the same level as Kansas City going into this game. And unfortunately, I think really that the injuries ended up catching up with Detroit, and they were just caught off guard by a hot Washington Commanders team at this point. So to get into the stats and everything, it was not a career day for Jared Goff. Unfortunately, he looked like he was lost out there at times. 3 interceptions, 313 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Of very, very costly interceptions, including at the end where they had a chance to try and claw back into it, but it was just too little, too late. On the ground, Jahmyr Gibbs, 105 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns through the air. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 137 yards. It was just the offensive fireworks were off the charts for both teams. Jaden Daniels does not look like a rookie. He is playing at another elite level. It is incredible to watch him. 299 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. On the ground, 51 more yards. Brian Robinson Jr., 77 carries, 77 yards on 15 carries, 2 touchdowns. He was great. And then Brown there, 6 catches, 98 yards. Just Terry McLaurin breaking away there. That was really what set off, I believe, the scoring, Palooza in the second quarter. 42 points scored in 1 quarter. I don't know the last time I've seen that in the NFL. And it was an absolute doozy, like you said, going all the way to the very end here where Washington takes care of Detroit 45-31.
Jess, I was not throwing shade at you when you said that because I believed in the Detroit Lions as well. And I know you have really been excited about this team. I think we all have been because, I think that's a team a lot of us have been rooting for in this process because you want to see that team that's never been there. And it's a great story. But they ran into a team that was coached perfectly. They have been put together perfectly, and they did it well. Now, Jaden Daniels is old for a rookie, as far as I'm concerned. He just turned 24 in December 18th, I believe it was. So he's 24 years old. And do you think that adds to the maturity and the success that age for a rookie.
Absolutely. I mean, when you go for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns in a playoff game on the road, like that's pretty good. Like he's going to be a force. Like the Washington Commanders, the commies, if you will. I think
We're not calling them the commies.
The commies. Reed's not here, right? Someone's got to carry that torch.
Yes, I didn't mention that Reed is celebrating the victory. He thought we were going tomorrow night. We gave him the night off because he's all excited and he's represents the Eagles.
He's trying to find the one lamppost that they haven't greased.
So he'll find it.
For me, the real story of this game is the second quarter. Like you said, 42 points, 28 points from Washington in that quarter, and Jared Goff did not have the greatest game. In fact, I don't necessarily. I mean, I all due respect to the commies, to the Washington Commanders.
You're killing.
But the 3 interceptions that Goff threw and the fumble that he lost, though that is telling of why the Lions came up short. They were a lot of fun to watch this season. They had all sorts of fun toys, firepower, weapons. And then when the rubber met the road, it self-destructed. And Jared Goff had a Mark Andrews-esque performance in the playoffs.
Somebody mentioned, and this is a really good call, if you go back 30 years ago, very reminiscent of the 1994 Steelers, who lost in the AFC Championship game to the San Diego Chargers by, I believe it was 17-13. I'm trying to forget that, but that was a team that was dominant that entire year, and maybe not to the extent that the Lions were, but just they were set up for everything, and they just fell flat. Washington, I thought it was amazing. I love how they're built. They still have. My son was asking me, "What do you think they need in the draft next year?" I said, maybe another receiver, but they're using all their weapons well, and they're using them to their complete ability. That defense is just good enough. Was good enough, and that front 7 was very strong as well. So I loved watching them in this game, and I felt like I was rooting for my team when I was watching that game, because I was around, like I said, a lot of Commanders fans, and they're playing Hail to the Commanders, and we're singing along and dancing along. And where we always have Steelers Sunday, I think we might have Commanders Sunday next week. Just another excuse to have a party. And it's the Eagles. Hogan, any last thoughts about that game?
Yeah, again, like I said, it was shocking to see Detroit lose that way in that fashion. I think the big thing, like I touched on before, though, was the injury bug. Like I said, the fact they put 22 guys on injured reserve. It was kind of one of those things that you were waiting for a team to creep up on them that I think was going to bite them where they weren't expecting it. The fact that it was Washington of all teams, I think, shocked a lot of people. But I don't anticipate the Eagles really taking Washington lightly, especially where they're divisional foes. I think it's going to be an absolute battle next week.
And we've talked about this all year long. When you play a division rival, you throw records out the window. You throw everything out the window. And we will talk about that. But one last thing, Jess, I want to bring this up to you. Of course, the Commanders were big winners, but the teams needing a head coach were definite winners in this game as well, wouldn't you say? Because now Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson have an opportunity to do all their interviews and probably sign on with the team by the end of the week.
Yeah, you got to watch that Raiders opening. The smoke to Ben Johnson is dark.
So. Oh yeah. I mean, if this was a pope, we're going to be seeing white smoke really soon, or silver and black smoke real soon.
And it's important to note that this is not the disgraced sprinter from the Olympics in the 80s. These are two different guys, not the same guy.
Oh, I thought they were going to be racing horses, and Ben Johnson, Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson, didn't he race a horse?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure. You always do that to me when you don't know. You're like, yeah, sure, Brian.
Yeah,
just go
I'm
with
not going to rain on your parade and out myself as not knowing anything.
I could lie to Jess. He'll just back me up. I'll go, sure.
Yeah. All right, fine. There are the same person.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn is definitely going to go ahead and jump on with a team probably as well. So I think Detroit is going to lose both of their major assistants here, both of their coordinators. Do you think, Jess, that is going to really now? I know we're jumping ahead to 2025. Do you think that's going to kill this team, or does Dan Campbell have a good thumb on this entire organization?
They have had stability for the last few years. So, I mean, if they have ever been in a position to weather an exodus like this, it would be now. So, sure.
All right, we have the Saturday games down. We've got really thrilling Sunday games to go. We are going to go ahead and take a break. Please stick around. We are here with the Fans First Football Show, like we have been all season long on the Fans First Sports Network. We are simulcasting tonight on the Mile High Broncos affiliate and the Steel Curtain Network as well. And we thank you all for joining us. And we want to remind you that if you like this kind of show and like NFL talk, please check out our NFL affiliate. You know Kevin Smith. He has a lot of shows on there. Jeff Hartman does as well. And we have other great voices all around the Fans First Football Network on there. So make sure you check it out. We're going to go ahead and take a break. Let's dance the night away with some fun entrance music.
Watch me go. Never slow. Make 'em whoa. Watch me go. Ready, set, go.
We are the Hit Squad, and you are running with us. It's Jess Place. It's Nick Hogan, and it is myself, Brian Anthony Davis. I don't even know if that is correct grammar. It doesn't matter. Our good friend Aiden Reed, who knows what he could be in shackles right now. He could be underneath the table. He could be underneath a little Philly right now. No, he's in Philly. So he could be, you never know what he's doing right now, but he is celebrating the big win today. And that's the first game we are going to talk about here. I would love to hear his analysis, but it would be basically 6 minutes of Zach Bond. And but Zach Bond, again, fantastic. He had one series where he dominated the series, and I think helped single-handedly shut the Rams completely down. And that was very late in the game, but this was more than Zach Bond. This was a fantastic fight between this was almost like Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas in 1990, where the Rams were so scrappy, and you thought they were going to you could see them pulling this out, especially let me ask you this, Hogan, before we get started. Could you have seen the Rams pull this out on a dry field or a dome?
Potentially. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that obviously the weather played a huge factor in it. I mean, that last throw that Stafford threw was just hot garbage. But like you said, in a dome, clear weather, that it would have been very interesting to see how that would have played out at the end.
And Kyron Williams is not fumbling as like he was. It was hard to hold on to the ball. Jess, I'm going to ask you this before we go to the stats with Hogan. Do you feel in that game that the weather really benefited the Eagles so much more? Because it just didn't seem like they were struggling with the weather like the Rams were.
Yeah, the Rams just could not find their footing all game. And for as awful as the Rams were at getting traction on the field, the Eagles were just slicing it up. They had no trouble. They were digging in their cleats. They were getting traction. They were moving down the field. The defense was finding purchase, and the offense. I mean, my gosh, like it looked like the Rams were just wearing like slides or something, because they just they could not get to the ball. They could not move. The weather was a huge factor for sure.
All right, Hogan, let's hear the story of this game. Sing us a song.
Sure. Well, I mean, the biggest song that I could sing you is the guy named Saquon Barkley. He is an absolute master at his craft. It is unbelievable to watch him on the field and do what he does. 26 carries, 205 yards, and 2 touchdowns, a long of 78 yards. Absolutely incredible stuff. Jalen Hurts did not have the best day throwing, but he did enough to get by on the ground. He was dangerous as well. 7 carries, 70 yards, and a nice scamper of 44 to kick off the scoring there, where he had his lone touchdown on the day. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford, he did everything he could to keep the guys in this game. 324 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And like you said, Kyron Williams had himself actually a pretty decent day, minus the fumble there. 19 carries and 106 yards. Puka Nacua, 6 catches, 97 yards. I mean, the stats were all theirs for these guys, but unfortunately the turnovers did not help them in the slightest. Philadelphia holds on at the very end, like you said, where it got sloppy towards the end, but Philly found a way to out-slop the Los Angeles Rams.
And I want to go ahead and give more credit to Jalen Hurts in this game, because he truly was hurt. He was that knee. That is going to be a major story this entire week. Jess, what were you thinking with that? Do you think that this is something that he's going to be favoring next week against Washington?
When it happened, you see him get folded up on like that, and you think the worst immediately. But he was able to come back onto the field, and he was rocking around after the game. But after the game is over, and he's not walking on it as much, and whatever they injected in there has worn off, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt this week, and he's gonna have to play through it, because they are not going to do very well with Kenny Pickett back there in a playoff game in the NFC Championship. Like you just can't do that. So Jalen's gonna be out there. He's not gonna be 100%, but I don't see a scenario where he doesn't play. He's got to play.
This was actually Kenny Pickett's first opportunity if he would have made it in the playoffs, because he did not play in the playoffs last year. He did not play in any of his years in Pittsburgh, any of those 2 years. So the only people that want to see Kenny Pickett in that game next week are Commanders fans and anybody that hates the Eagles, I would think. But I have to give some more credit to the Eagles. First of all, let's talk about Saquon Barkley a little bit more. It's hard for me to say that he's not the MVP of this league.
Honestly, if he doesn't sit out week 17 for that, and he breaks that rushing record and everything, he absolutely had every right to be in the conversation for MVP. I know everybody is licking their chops to talk about, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, which we'll be talking about soon. But Saquon is just, again, we've touched on it all year, and Aiden could absolutely sing the praise of this. But ever since leaving the shackles of the New York Giants, we have seen what Saquon is actually capable of doing. And behind that offensive line that the Philadelphia Eagles have is just incredible stuff to watch. And honestly, if he stays healthy going forward, there's no reason why he can't have multiple 2,000-yard seasons going forward.
I'd like to go back, Jess, and I'd like to look at the 2023 NFL draft and everybody that passed on Jalen Carter. Shame on them. That guy right now, he looks like he is going to be in the next year or two, the Aaron Donald, where you could count on him winning not 1, not 2, but 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards.
Yeah.
He's not the best color man in the world for nothing,
There
folks.
you go. I mean, what more needs to be said? You said it. Like I agree.
How can elaborate? Help me out here.
I got you. Yeah, no, Jalen Carter is an absolute beast. I mean, he is an absolute mammoth of a man, and his presence was absolutely felt in that game today, on top of other big games throughout the season there as well. And the Eagles absolutely needed him. I think with the retirement of Fletcher Cox before the season, they needed to replace that interior D lineman there to really make an impact and obviously take over games. And Jalen Carter is proving that he can be that guy. I don't know if I'm going to put him on an Aaron Donald level just yet, like you, Brian, but the potential is absolutely there for him. That, I mean, the future is just, bright as can be for this kid.
I'm saying mark it down. Jess has heard me, and Jess has agreed with me. So
I'm just, adversarial and combative in general. So, yeah.
Another thing I want to touch on here is the sacks in this game were absolutely incredible. Wasn't it like 6-5 in this game? Rams 6. Was it 6-5? Was that the final total? Do you have that, Hogan?
Rams had 7 and Eagles had 5.
Jess, I'm going to ask you this. Do you feel that was weather aided too?
Oh yeah. The weather was a big factor in all phases of the game. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, Hogan, one last thing here. Jared Verse ticked off a lot of Eagles fans, ticked off Jalen Carter as well, because there was an interaction before this game by saying how much he hates Eagles fans, but he was backing it up. He was ripping through, and it seemed to raise the ire every single time he got through and made a tackle. In fact, I think our good friend Aiden Reed probably has a Jared Verse voodoo doll right now where he's just throwing darts at.
Absolutely. The thing with Verse is he backed up his talk. That's the biggest thing, is when you see guys usually jibber jabber before a game and give the other team bulletin board material, it usually doesn't end up well for the guy that did so. Where Verse really put the hammer down in this game at times, where he made some impacts. Like you talked about Zach Bond having a series there where he was just all over the field. Verse was the exact same way. Although the one thing that's probably going to haunt him tonight is, I believe, on that 78-yard rush by Saquon Barkley. At one point, Saquon turned around and looked and saw it was Verse that was the last guy chasing him, and kind of gave him like a, "Oh, hey, what's up, buddy?" Like the smirk, like "see you in the end zone," and took off. So that was a little extra sweet for Saquon there, but again, like I said, on the flip side, Verse opened up some eyes today, and I think he's a linebacker to keep your eyes on going forward, because he played extremely well for a Rams team that isn't known for its defense as of right now.
Yeah, but with guys like Fisk and Verse, this is a team that we're going to hear a lot about in the future. My good friend 4TL Tone Music Group says, "Bad, a little off topic, but Jalen Carter is why the Steelers need to go DT in the first round." I think a lot of teams that can use that boost in the front line have taken notice of Jalen Carter today. So that was a great call. I would actually think that teams like the Steelers that were getting run on like they were last week, and other teams that were getting run on by certain running backs, even a team like the Rams today that got run on by Saquon, you would think that there's going to be a premium soon on DTs again. So let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and get that final game of the weekend. And to me, this was the thriller. This was a pins and needles game for me, because I am at heart a Steelers fan, and watching the Ravens go, the way the Ravens have played in the last few weeks, Jess, it seems like they were on track to go ahead and not only make the Super Bowl, but it felt like they were a team that could win the Super Bowl outright. And seeing other teams go down, I thought the Ravens were becoming favorites. For them to be a favorite in this game in Buffalo was huge, and they almost pulled this off again.
It was an exciting game. It certainly was. Also in the weather, although the traction wasn't really as big of an issue as it was in the earlier game. It was exciting. It was an exciting game. I mean, it came down to the last possession, the last touchdown. Poor Mark Andrews, he couldn't hold on to the ball and was stripped. And then he wasn't able to get the 2-point conversion. He wasn't able to hold on to it to complete the catch. And the Ravens ultimately ended up losing as a result.
2 drops in this game when the man has not had a drop since 2019. That's absolutely mind-numbing to me. Hogan, tell me the story of this game.
Yeah, this game was absolutely bananas, like you both alluded to, where it came down to the very wire there. But I mean, the biggest thing that I took away from this game was the Baltimore Ravens just continue to shoot themselves in the foot in the playoffs when it comes to not running the ball, and Lamar Jackson proving time and time again passing is not his forte. But that being said, the stats across the board there, Lamar had 254 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception that came early on in the game there. Derrick Henry was off and chugging along at the very start of this game, 16 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown to finish the day. But boy, oh boy, did they go away from him in the second half, where I think he was starting to pick up steam and really do some damage. And they kept trying to throw the ball and force it for Lamar. On the receiving side, Isaiah Likely finished the day with 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 4 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. On the Bills side, not a lot of eye-popping stats. Josh Allen, very, very pedestrian day. 127 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Rushing-wise, 10 carries for only 20 yards. James Cook looked decent on the ground at times, 17 carries for 67 yards. But the touchdowns were all short gimmies for Ray Davis and Josh Allen, obviously, on the ground there. And the defense was obviously the biggest story for the Buffalo Bills, where they got shellacked by the Baltimore Ravens in the regular season. I think the final score was 35-10-ish when they played earlier on. And their defense came to play today. The fumbles and everything were just massive. Von Miller returning that big one at one point, and then, like you said, obviously at the end, where they tried to give it away, but Mark Andrews just said, "Nope, no, thank you."
I will say this too. I really thought that Buffalo blew it, being inside the 5 and on 3rd down, not trying to put. I think they were in the 2.5, and not trying to run it up the middle, but with Josh Allen, but run from the shotgun with Josh Allen. Just that's egregious at this point. That's getting too cute, don't you think?
It was a little cute. I mean, you'd like to see him score the touchdown for sure. I mean, it was the difference between going up 8 and going up 13. So you really want to get the touchdown, but they left the door open, and Lamar marched right on down the field. They got the touchdown, and then Mark Andrews said, "No, thank you."
Hogan, are you shocked that the Ravens, that this game isn't still going?
Honestly, no, because I think the big thing was a lot of people looked at the Ravens like, kind of like you alluded to, where that they were just this unstoppable team that just was going to run through anybody in their path. And I think the Buffalo Bills were the better team today, but also throughout most of the season as well, because with the departure of a lot of key members from that Buffalo team that I've unfortunately seen them flourish over the last 5 or 6 years now that my team is hot garbage. I've noticed that the Bills obviously have taken, I thought they were going to take a step back this year with the departure of Stephon Diggs and Pryor on the defense. I mean, they lost a lot of key components. Tre'Davious White was another one. And they came together collectively, and they're playing like a one single unit that looks really, really well. Where Baltimore, yeah, they're decent. They have great players. They add the big ticket guy like Derrick Henry, and they have the playmakers here across the board, but they're never that unit that grows together from the initial draft and everything else. And this isn't a shot at Ravens. I mean, obviously, I know with the Steel Curtain Network that you guys must be loving me talking smack about the Ravens, but honestly, I don't see them really growing a team through the draft or guys that come up through together. They always try and pick out those free agents that really put them over the top. And it does great things for them in the regular season. It never pans out in the playoffs. Look at Odell Beckham last year, where he was the big guy that they got. They failed in the AFC Championship. Derrick Henry was the guy this year. What are they going to do next year for a free agency guy that's going to make them, now they're the contenders again? I don't see it. Where you love to see teams that can build their team from the ground up like the Buffalo Bills have done to this point.
Absolutely, I can't say it better myself. Jess, Hogan alluded to the fact that his team is hot garbage. Does anybody really prefer lukewarm garbage or cold garbage?
Well, when trash is hot, it tends to stink more, and so that's what he is getting to. So, yes,
Okay,
they are filthy hot garbage.
Yeah,
I,
eight wins,
again,
8 wins in 2 years. I think that's considered hot garbage. I mean, I know Pittsburgh land, you guys haven't lost, one in less than 8 games in like 20 plus years, but I'm in misery right now until we get back to the winning path. So leave me
oh,
alone.
they will fight you on right now. They will Pittsburgh fans will fight you on and come up with a good argument why their team is worse than the New England Patriots. Trust me, they absolutely will, and they've been given somewhat good of a reason to. So, all right. So now's we usually talk about the team of the week. We're not going to do that. Let's just go straight to next week's games. We're gonna do some kind of projection. We're not looking for a score, but who do you see coming out of it? Jess, I'm going to start with you. Let's start with the early game. It's the NFC. It is going to be the Commanders traveling to Philadelphia, a place where they won. If I'm not mistaken, no, that was actually they won at home. They lost on the road to Philadelphia. They played both in November and December, but they just beat that Philadelphia team right before Christmas. Jess, Commanders, do they have a chance?
I would like to think that the Commanders have a chance, but I really think that Philly is going to come in and take this. The Commanders are kind of new to the playoff world. They've got the rookie quarterback. Granted, he will probably be the offensive rookie of the year, but I just think that they need a little more seasoning before they can make that next jump. I think Philly is going to be going to the Super Bowl.
I have been calling the Washington Commanders not ready for prime time the entire season. And now I feel like I've got to apologize for that, actually. Hogan, what are your thoughts here? Because this is a heck of a game when you have an offense that put up those kind of numbers yesterday against one of the top defenses in the league.
Right. I think the biggest thing that this game comes down to is what we talked about earlier is the health of Jalen Hurts, honestly. And I know a lot of Eagles fans, honestly, are a little interested in that because I know some Eagles fans that aren't the biggest Hurts fans. But that being said, it is a significant drop off from Jalen Hurts to Kenny Pickett, no matter which way you want to, put it. But as long as you got Saquon in the backfield, I'm going to give Philly a chance all day long because, heck, I could hand the ball off to Saquon and feel comfortable about what's going to happen on the field, That's not taking away anything from the Commanders, though. The Commanders won 12 games for a reason. Dan Quinn, even though the team might be inexperienced with the playoff run, Dan Quinn is an experienced coach who brought an Atlanta Falcons team to the Super Bowl. I like how that game ended. I'm not going to, rehash that, but he has the experience of being in the big game in the spotlight. And honestly, maybe losing that game with Atlanta is paying dividends now for this Washington team. So he can prep his guys to be like, hey, you can't take anyone lightly. I would know better than anyone else what happens if you take your foot off the gas pedal. So I like to see Washington give a real fight in this game. I think if Hurts is healthy and all the cards fall in line, Philadelphia could and should win the game. I'd love to see the Commanders put up a fight or potentially pull the upset.
Oh, that would be just great for the story. But I tell you what, I'm not going to say my entire prediction because I'll save it for the second part. But when we were back in November and I was seeing teams get hot, I went ahead and picked Philadelphia to go despite how good Detroit has been. Now, I'm not saying that, I mean, a lot of people can do that with the way they were winning. They won, I think, almost 10 straight, the way they were winning ball games. So it doesn't make me a master prognosticator because I know I'm not. But I went ahead and picked the Super Bowl that is possible. And I'm going to go ahead and pick that other team when we go ahead and do the next game. So in fact, let's just do it now. My pick was Philadelphia and Buffalo. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the AFC round by saying that I think Buffalo gets off the schneid. And I think the way that offense is going, if you saw a down week from Josh Allen, if you want to call this a down week, I still don't even call it a down week. But if this was Josh Allen's down week, I think they're going to be quite fine in Kansas City because the weather doesn't bother them, of course, because they play in Buffalo. They had a game where they should have beaten Kansas City last year in the divisional round. I think it's their time. So I'm going to say Philadelphia and Buffalo go ahead and play in the Super Bowl in 3 weeks in New Orleans from today. Jess, let's go ahead and let you start off with the late game, Kansas City and Buffalo.
Well, it feels like every year I get excited and root for Buffalo to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and every year I am disappointed. So I hope I don't find myself in that position again. I do think that Buffalo is the better team. I think Kansas City, I mean, they are good and they have the luck and they may have the officials on their side too. But I just, in my heart of hearts, I think the Bills can do it this year, and I really want them to pull it out. And so, to reprise our conversation about the refs, I would like to think that the NFL has been listening and saw the discrepancy in how the games were called, and they may not be as coddling next week as they were this week. So I hope that is my sincere hope as a NFL fan. So, but yeah, I think the Bills will be going to the Super Bowl to play Philadelphia.
So are you making it unanimous, Hogan?
Oh, guys, you're putting me in a tough position because on one hand, I have to pick a division opponent, and then I have to pick a team that's doing their best to make the Patriots dynasty fully evaporate in front of me. I am not going to make it unanimous, unfortunately, as much as I would prefer to see the Bills, which makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. I don't see Kansas City taking the foot off the gas pedal. They have all the intangibles. They have Andy Reid. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Travis Kelce. They have freaking Taylor Swift, of all people, guiding them to where they need to go. The NFL wants a three-peat. I have to see it coming at this point because it's just – that's what the NFL wants. They want the big ticket names. They want those guys in the Super Bowl again because it always makes for great drama and everything like that. And unfortunately, Kansas City is, again, a complete package with the players and the coaching staff they have there. And arguably, Steve Spagnuolo might be the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. No disrespect to Dick LeBeau or anybody else, but what Spagnuolo has done with that Kansas City defense for the last 4 or 5 plus years at this point is unheard of, where they are just cycling through different players and they are still one of the scariest defenses in the league. And I see it's a great story for Buffalo at this point. I just can't see him getting past Kansas City again.
We are going to have a lot to talk about, and we will talk about all of this next week, but you've got to make sure that you stick around to any of your Fans First Sports Networks affiliates to talk about this game and all of these games. It's going to be very exciting. We have great Philadelphia affiliates. We have great Kansas City affiliates as well. We have a Washington affiliate, and I believe we have a Buffalo affiliate as well. So we will go ahead and you got to keep with our NFL affiliate with Kevin Smith, Jeff Hartman, lots of great commentators on that as well as our Fans Football Sports Show. Our Fans First Football Show crew here. I did get a super chat, and I got to go ahead and bring this up because I always take care of the super chats, and I thank everybody. $2 bad. Why is Harbaugh known as Wang Harbs? Well, if we go back to December 29th, 2019, it was the last game of the season. The Steelers their quarterback was Duck Hodges. Ben Roethlisberger was out for the year. It was the last game of the season. They have already clinched. That is, the Baltimore Ravens had already clinched. It was in the rain. It was disgusting weather. They were just they were just lambasting the Steelers. They were killing them in every sense of the word. And Harbaugh was going for fake punts, going for it on 4th down, just doing all he could just to embarrass them. And on the post-game show, so hey, we have the archives here. You can go back and listen to that show where I called him a wang. And I was very unprofessional. I called him a wang, and I kept on going. And then he was adopted. I believe Jeff might have been the first one to call him Wang Harbs, or somebody in the somebody in the live chat called him Wang Harbs, and it just stuck. So he has been Wang Harbs, and the Ravens have been Wangs ever since. And it's, I'm not proud of it, but in a way, it's my legacy, and I'm stuck with it. So yes, I am the creator of Wang Harbs in a way. So there you go. I don't know if you guys have stories like that, Jess or Hogan, but I'm sure you have names for Andy Reid, or you have names for any of the Jets coaches. Okay.
I don't know if they're
those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for the Jets, I don't have anything that's media appropriate for me to say out loud at this point.
Yeah, I would get an explicit rating on the show. You can't have that. It's best that we just.
All right. I want to thank everybody in the live chat. We can't do these shows without you, without listening to us on a random Wednesday or Thursday when you're driving to work, listening to all these shows that we have when we can't see your names up on the board. We know you're there. We know you're doing it. We thank you so much. But we had over 900 in the live chat tonight, and we really appreciate it. Next week at this time, we will have another episode of the Steelers Q&A, as that's going back to Sunday night. But you'll be able to find this on the NFL affiliate here of the Fans First Sports Network, as we're going to be talking about all of our other games. I have to bring this up. Brother Man to you says, cannot believe our Steelers signed Skylar Thompson. Thank you for the $2. Yeah, Skylar Thompson might be the emergency quarterback or the backup in Pittsburgh next year, because he is the only signed black and gold quarterback right now, because nobody else, whether it be Kyle Allen, whether it be Justin Fields, or Jess's favorite player, Russell Wilson, whether it be any of those, they do not have contracts. The only person that has a deal is Skylar Thompson. So, Hogan, you know a lot about Skylar Thompson.
Oh, I do. And I was going to say, there's another name actually out there. If you were interested, Mac Jones, I'm sure is going to be available once Jacksonville lets go of him. So if you guys want him, he is more than willing to go to you guys. I can tell you that right now.
All right, Hogan's breaking up. We got to go. Hey, thank you again so much for Just Place, for Nick Hogan. I always want to call him Hogan as a first name, but we got a hell no to Mac Jones, by the way, Hogan. But for Nick Hogan, and for the celebrating Aiden Reed, make sure you check him out on Broad Street LinkedIn. That's going to be a really fun post-game show. You definitely want to check that out on our Eagles affiliate as well. So make sure you check all that out. But thanks again for all of us. We have one way that we always sign off here, and it's simple, and it's just 2 words, and we're going to say it together. Gentlemen, ladies, go football.
Go football.
Never slow.